Nice. And I'll have the chat open, but otherwise you're also very welcome just to like raise your hand when you want to. There'll be a little Q&A afterwards. But yeah, cool. I think I'll just kick it off. Nice. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. It is a pleasure to be with everyone here today. This talk is the keynote for the Entrepreneurship Hackathon here at Apart, where we are working on AI safety startups this weekend, and a bunch of new ideas and new pilot projects for figuring out how we can make the world a little bit safer from AI and with AI for that matter, during the weekend here. So this talk will be a little bit of a grand vision of where we're going in the future, and then exactly where AI safety startups can fit in, sort of to give you the perspective that we're coming from. And all this, I'll mention that it is, it is speculative. It is things that people have discussed online, and it's still hotly debated. But I think there's a lot of evidence for the things I'm gonna talk about, and then I'm also gonna highlight a few points about like what is actually happening right now in the startup space for AI safety, that can be impactful and can really help us sort of develop a safer world for us as humans with AI. So I'll mention as well that you can jump on ais.pub/startup25, and you will be able to get access to these slides if you want to follow along at home, if the stream suddenly stops showing, or if you want to get access to the links in there during the talk. So I've decided to call this talk AI Futures and Our Path Forward. And it'll be, indeed, as I mentioned, a little bit of a grand vision. Now, first off, as Achana mentioned, many of you already know me, but I just wanted to give a quick intro specifically on the startup side. I think many of you know me from the Apart research side and the technical AI safety work we do here at the organization. But other reason to listen to me is like I've been a part of founding a bunch of different organizations, some more, some less successful, but basically have a bunch of experience there. I am the Apart co-director with Jason, founded this organization for AI safety some years back now, and it's been a pleasure to see all the development we've had, these hackathons being a big part of it, but otherwise also our fellowship and all the lab work happening there. I've recently also become a partner at Juniper Ventures, which is 100% impact-focused venture capital firm, exactly for AI safety and existential risk reduction. And then in general, I'm just impact first kind of guy. So really focused on not just making money here with startups, which is always the question you're gonna ask yourself as you jump into a field like this, whether people are doing it for the money or doing it for the actual outcomes. And there we of course are a nonprofit at Apart, so that's one example, but have also worked with climate activism, some education, also with the global work we do here at Apart, and then pledging and donations there. Now, another part of this reason is that we at Apart are launching what we've called the Selden Accelerator, which is a project to accelerate for-profit AI safety companies to have real-world impact as fast as possible. And you can already now access the website at seldenaccelerator.com. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the talk. But let's jump right in. So first off, I want to just talk a little bit about where it looks like the world is heading. So we have recently seen a bunch of results from experiments testing whether AIs are capable of doing a range of different tasks. Specifically, we've seen them be extremely capable at math, extremely difficult math problems. We've seen them be very capable at doing automated R&D, so research and development. And this graph to the right is one such example. So this is from our friends over at Meter, who have done an evaluation project to evaluate how good are current models in an agent framework at doing autonomous research and development tasks. And so you have a bunch of different, very interesting tasks, like very realistic tasks to train or develop new neural networks. And you can see over here to the right on the x-axis, we have the amount of time you have, either the agent or the human. The human is the black line. The agents are the red and orange lines, among others. And oh, there was a little thumbs up. And the fascinating thing here is that the red and orange line, what we want to look at is all the way to the right there, because one of the bottlenecks of AIs right now is that they're not that good at long horizon planning and actions. So these tasks that need to have consistent memory and so on over a longer period, because they end up hallucinating and so on. So what we're looking at is when they become capable of those kinds of tasks, they'll also be able to outperform humans. And on the graph over to the right, you can see that the distance between the red and the orange dots is quite high, all the way to the right there, but on the y-axis being the performance itself. And these two models were released 4 months apart. And so when you look at the graph, you have to think that it is the only line there that won't be changing over the next 5 years or so is the black line. It is the human performance. And so there's just a lot of evidence right now that there aren't really any limits to scaling intelligence in this format, in artificial intelligence in these AI models. So that is quite an interesting thing and something we have to deal with. And of course, there are some relevant implications of this. One is that the capability seems to continue to grow, and there's a lot of other work also hinting at this. We basically have to prepare for a near future where we exist with a lot, maybe billions of generally intelligent agents on the internet, maybe even in robots, as some of the new Chinese developments have seen, and so on and so forth. Some of the worries of this are, of course, there might be new weapons of mass destruction. Humanity may become obsolete in the process because we aren't really a competitive intelligence since we're creating this new species. And then another one being that superintelligence or general artificial intelligence will sort of decide our future. And that might be a little bit of a gloomy takeaway, but there are a few different futures. I'm not gonna turn down the gloom too much, but we'll turn up the optimism later in this talk. But there are three potential futures that we're sort of looking at overarchingly. And there's a lot of others, but just to give them a few categories here, so you have some ideas of where we might see things heading within the AI safety space and within the world as a whole. So one of them is the progenitor thesis, which is basically that humanity is sort of a step in the process for this new species to become a generally conscious being that can explore the universe, be curious, have all the values that we want to have. There's a few different very interesting papers on this. I recommend watching Michael Levin's podcast episode, linked down there at the bottom, and potentially reading Bostrom's paper, which is pretty interesting and talks about how our responsibility as a species to one degree or another is actually to make sure that AI is a good galactic citizen so that it doesn't harm other civilizations that may be trying to grow or survive. And so there's some very, very interesting implications of this, of course, but some of the key points in favor of supporting this view is that there's a bunch of moral flaws of humanity. I personally think that one of the great parts about humanity, of course, is that we are sort of always able to update our values and update where we're going. And hopefully the onset of AI will help us reflect on our values and be able to think about, okay, what are we actually putting into this AI that we're developing. Some of the key challenges for this sort of view or this sort of project is that the profit incentives we have right now do not reward good AI. They reward military AIs, as we have seen. There's not a lot of time for a global consensus on these values. And in general, the global cooperation in these sorts of fields is really difficult. And the big one is that the earliest AIs will probably not have the best interests of humanity at heart. And I'm not even sure if later down the line they will. So if we want to make sure that the world is really secure and safe for us as well, this might not be the future we want, or the sort of project we want to support. Then the other one is the cohabitation thesis. I'm, by the way, just giving these names. I'm sure many others have given them better names, but here we are. So this is basically the thesis that humans and AI will be able to live together in harmony in one way or another. It's all the good old robots, human societies, cyberpunk, whatever, ways that humans and AI will be able to cohabitate the world. And there's a few different very interesting parts to this worldview, which is that most of the CEOs of the current AI lab companies, they are very, very interested in a book series called Culture, which is a sci-fi series about some sort of benevolent superintelligence sort of making sure society goes well and helping everyone. And this is the vision for this post-abundance and utopic vision, which is very attractive. And it is very appealing for these reasons as well. And another reason why we might be in support of this is that we've actually seen efforts to align models be relatively successful. So one being Claude, Claude is just a pretty aligned model. So it might be misaligned in 0.01% of cases, but in general, its answers are actually really, really good. And maybe as a result of some of these like easy alignment efforts, it turns out it's easy, and superintelligence may then respect human autonomy and like respect us as a species, and sort of help us out and live with us. Some of the things that make it slightly unrealistic is that it really assumes that one, superintelligence will care about us. Two, that humans will be able to cohabitate. I mean, so that we will be at parity, that we will be at a reasonable, like at an equal level in this sort of society. And if we are not, that we are sort of happy being managed in one way or another. And that seems to only be possible within like for a few years, given that we don't see these limits to intelligence scale. So again, it is the exponential intelligence will probably imply that human obsolescence will happen. So obsolescence meaning that humans become somewhat irrelevant to the progress in society. And in general, this approach, adopted by many of the AI labs as a result of this worldview, is sort of a Hail Mary that is mostly based on a sort of hope that it will work out, and the AI will help us. Now, another one is the pausing and the no AI thesis, sort of the dark forest, if you read the sci-fi book there from Xixin Liu. But it's the effort to ban or pause some of these technological developments until we have figured out how to do it well, or until we decide just to continue keeping it banned in case it's continues to be dangerous. But this, of course, is similarly unlikely for some of the reasons you can imagine. Also, global coordination, mainly this question of AI race dynamics. So hopefully we saw Joe and Xi Jinping shake hands, of course, on avoiding autonomous weapons. But again, this is not a binding agreement, and if there is an AI race, then we will probably see this develop despite the good arguments for it. And another part here is we do a lot of compute governance, so trying to ensure that we know where the big computers are in the world, so we know what's happening on them and which sorts of agents and AI are being trained on it. This is super important, but on AI hardware right now, so the GPUs we run at the moment, it doesn't look like we wouldn't be able to run some of the very intelligent models there. So it's not like we need a completely new type of hardware to make it work. So this is the third of these three potential futures here. Of course, that doesn't inspire like too much confidence. So some of the things we want to look at is what can we actually do from the point we stand at right here. And there's a few different options. So one is this deliberately, like the plan to deliberately design a secure future with general intelligence. This is a very proactive approach. This is like creating new types of internets, new infrastructure, looking critically at our current infrastructure and our current technologies, and reevaluating and designing them to actually deliberately make them safer and more secure with humans in mind. Then the second is to, as I mentioned, the Hail Mary approach, the creating an aligned AI that will then create the positive future for us. This is the main goal of someone like Anthropic, of course. And then the third is this pause AI in various formats. So pausing or slowing down or making sure it goes well, restricting it, all these kinds of things. And here the EU has, of course, the EU AI Act, which has a bunch of requirements to make sure it goes well and is safe before it's deployed. And you have the UK AI Safety Institute that do these tests and develop these testing mechanisms for it. On the left there, the one you see besides apart as well is the ARIA, so the Advanced Research and Innovation Agency in the UK, that have specific projects to actually build like mathematically verifiable systems to secure neural networks and secure AI models. So these are some of the options we can take. From my perspective, number 2 and 3 are generally relatively reactive to the developments that are happening. So it's not something that will inherently have a great argument for securing the future. And so we are very much looking towards, when we think of startups and think of new technological developments, we're looking to the first one. So it's this question of a sort of a bet on startups being the right option for us to create a designed utopia, whatever you want to call it. This is a really big project, and something that will probably take a long while and a lot of people and a lot of startups. And so this is where we are, right? It's a place where billions of super intelligent agents can exist safely, where humans have inherent meaning, policymakers have levels for control, and model weights stay secure. So this world where we are just like we can verify that things are going well, that no one's using things in the wrong way, that they aren't malicious, that they're non-agentic, for example, myopic agents, so where you don't give agents a personality and all these types of things. This is not the default path, which is why it's this proactive. We really need to do something about it and create new technology for it. And so the question is then why these AI assurance or AI safety startups, as we're looking at now, it is that we need a lot of technical change very fast to make sure this happens. So I mentioned compute governance before. Right now, we cannot ensure that GPUs aren't smuggled to some specific place where you can train an AI yourself. We also generally just need to provide more solutions for others to use. So right now, in general, you've seen how the cloud providers have grown as an industry, and then in tangent, or in parallel, a bit delayed, we've seen the cybersecurity industry grow. And this is where the cybersecurity industry then has provided a bunch of solutions to very concrete business problems and very concrete problems that these people have, but that they haven't been able to see because their profit incentive looks completely different. And so they have a problem, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of people to actually solve this safety problem. And so they'd rather invest it directly in a bit of an insecure development mindset. And so this is where cybersecurity companies came in and provided a bunch of solutions, and where potential AI assurance companies can come in and provide those solutions for both the companies in AI, so AGI labs like Anthropic or OpenAI, but also to governments and the AI Safety Institute for products that make their lives much easier to do the work that they're put into the world to do. And as I mentioned before, we really need to be proactive about this. We cannot be reactive too much, because this is a place where we sort of want to sit and think about what is the world going to look like, and what is the technology that will change it to make sure we are at a safer spot, at a more secure spot with the general intelligence. And the fourth thing here is that we really need to scale the impact too. So there is quite an issue right now in the AI safety space that funding is a bit difficult to come by, despite the very big importance of the project. And this is very interesting, very confusing to many. But with for-profit companies, the business case is very obvious, and it's something where you can scale around a mission that also enhances impact. So in this sense, we usually think of projects where the product itself is very aligned with solving the concrete security problem we're looking at, or redesigning it for a safer system. So you can sort of give the business case and the impact case at the same time. And then, of course, it is a bit more exciting and more possible, I think, than some of the other projects that we've looked at. There's some amazing work happening across the world for AI governance, which is really amazing. There's some amazing work happening in terms of aligning AIs within the AI labs, and a lot of very conscientious individuals there. And so the one place where we think there's not enough efforts is this startup space that we're currently looking at, and getting founders and entrepreneurs to solve very concrete problems. So we have this whole problem space solved with each startup. To that end, there's a bunch of companies that already have gone through this. So I don't want to talk in too big picture. During the brainstorming sessions during the last week, I also gave a bunch of examples. But I'll give just three concrete examples, three cases for startups that have done exactly this now. And you tell me if it's correct or not, if they were successful. But I sure think they're on the right path in that sense. So one of the first ones is Goodfire here. Goodfire AI. We worked with them on a hackathon just a couple of months back. I guess, yeah, it's 1.5 months now. Last year, on reprogramming AI models using their new technology. So from their perspective, it was really a question of, okay, well, AI models are not interpretable, nor are the ways we train them, and interpretability methods that were usually enough to be done in academia, because it wasn't very resource intensive, have now become very resource intensive, because you have to train new interpretability models. And so Goodfire went ahead and they were like, okay, well, then we need venture capital. We need the size that a startup can provide. to actually do proper work in this space and to accelerate the ability to get more transparent models. And I'll mention that the co-founders there, Eric Hope, he wrote a great post called "Some For-Profit AI Alignment Org Ideas," which also has some good inspiration for anyone looking for that. And he also left another startup after raising 45 million for it to build this Goodfire AI. So an interesting case here of something that's very inside the current research field and something we've had a bunch of hackathons about the topic itself, but with a clear path towards growth and impact, and sort of expanding this field in a problem domain that is very specific. This question of the cost it takes to train models. And so now, as you can see on the left, they've open sourced these sparse autoencoders, the SAEs, for some very recent models there. And this is something that is too costly for normal people to be able to train. And I believe it is the biggest one that is open source right now. So yeah, that's a very interesting case, and someone we're following closely. And then another case study here is something that is a little bit outside of what we would usually look at from a technical perspective within AI safety, is this question of content moderation. And it's basically a bunch of founders that were previously at Grindr and OkCupid, where you might be like, oh, well, interesting. Why are they going into this space? But they just saw that it became less, the information on the internet became less and less trustworthy. And it's something we see as well in a lot of sociology research, that we talk about this concept of infosphere contamination and the infosphere itself, like our interaction with information between each other and the social systems we interact with, and how they'll be compromised by AI to one degree or another. And you've probably already seen it, a bunch of random things on the internet that are clearly created by AI, written by AI, put into a video by AI or something like this, where the content either isn't as high quality, or it might even be something that is trying to scam you. And in this case, what Musubi Labs tries to do is they have automated content moderation. And this is, might look a bit weird coming from this world of AI safety, that this should be a high impact project. But it is a place where, okay, well, this is one of the biggest risks to the human experience itself and to trust within society. And so if this is done really, really well in a post-AGI world, then it's a really good case for impact right there. Now, the third case study as well is from Lakera. So this was a bunch of people from FANG, I guess it's Mang now, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, and Google, and so on. And they found that cybersecurity in general wasn't ready for the AI age as they were working with their software. And so they created sort of they just realized that agents are easy to jailbreak and exploit, and there's no robust defenses yet. And even though the AI companies are developing these things, they don't have time to actually implement the defenses or build enough defenses around the type of infrastructure they're building for example, ChatGPT. And so they've built this layer between agents and users to capture and filter and find and control for illegal behavior, illegal requests, things that are out of order, and monitoring those. And one of their big value adds is really that they can do this at like 50 milliseconds or something like that, which is obviously something that is important. So it's very interesting because it already has quite a large scale impact at the major labs and some of the people that provide these services. And they are also they're also, yeah, I guess, like directly reducing risk right now through reducing the misuse from human users too. So there's the big case on both sides. Now, I will say that there's also many more, and there's a lot of folks that we're chatting with, and some amazing people building startups right now. And if you're very interested in this, I recommend checking out the AI Assurance Technology Report, which is on the resources list on the Hackathon page, that we'll also hear from one of the authors of tomorrow at the Hack Talk. But you can see there's a lot of companies here already in the 4 categories that they define: the safeguarding, governing, auditing, and verifying, within what they call AI assurance, which is AI safety. But assurance is used as the word because it's very used within finance and within other fields such as software. So this is something that really puts it in the context of the markets themselves too. So yeah, I recommend checking that one out and seeing some of the companies that are there. Now, a very interesting thing that we're then working on right now, and that this hackathon and some of our like four past AI safety entrepreneurship hackathons have been leading up to, is that we are very interested in technical work and also just ways to structure social incentive systems. So even insurances or whatever. So not just purely technical. We're very interested in seeing that actually hit the real world and hit the real world ground running, or whatever you want to call that. And to that end, we are launching this accelerator down the line, where you are really welcome to jump in there on selfaccelerator.com and already check it out and apply if you have a startup idea. But it's a place where we are trying to look a little bit beyond the doom, but we're also looking beyond the to one degree or another a little bit inconsiderate acceleration that is happening at the moment. Where we're inviting folks like you, responsible builders, to actually come and sort of build that future with us. And of course, it builds on our amazing work at Apart Research as well, with the fellowship and all the work we've done to accelerate careers for research. And then we're, to one degree or another, just building the YC for AI safety in relation to that as well. So I highly recommend it. The call to action here, of course, first off, is to make some rock and roll projects during this weekend. So we can get that looked at. And there'll be a bunch of awesome judges, I know, that will be looking through it and giving some of their thoughts on how the projects turn out. You know the criteria as well. But besides that, you can already now apply to the accelerator. And there is what we call feedback cycles coming up. So this is a deadline on the 10th of February for you to submit early and often. So we really encourage repeat submissions, because then we'll give you feedback for that. The first batch will be invite only for now, but if you submit, you'll get on the radar and so on and so forth. It is really for pre-seed companies that already have an idea and possibly already have a team coming in. So yeah, but jump in there and apply. And if you are looking to generally just enter the space, or are very interested in changing your career towards founding, then we also have the fellowship, where you can read more about it, and it's launching a bit later this year. But you can read more about it on selfaccelerator.com/fellowship. And then otherwise, we have a bit of a like a small, very ad hoc community that is sort of the front end of all this work, where you can come along for some of the bi-weekly AI safety founders community roundtables, where we invite some existing founders and some of the VCs to join us to just chat about what AI safety is really about, and how we can make sure that startups improve it and make it go better. And you can just join that through aisfounders.com. And it's a beautiful Times New Roman website, so you can get enticed by that. Of course, on the Apart side, we are going to continue to host these sorts of hackathons where you can become part of our like awesome work to to push the frontier of what's possible. Sort of do quick frontier search, quick pilot experiments, and figuring out whether new ideas for startups and new ideas for impact within this field are possible. And you can subscribe to our newsletter just to stay up to date with all of that at apartresearch.com/blog/news. And I think you might have to click news with a big N. We'll get a new page for the newsletter sign up down the line. But for now, that is a great link that you can copy from the slideshow as well. So those are my small call to actions here. Otherwise, I'm ready for just any questions coming up, and any things you want to get clarified or to hear more about. So yeah, opening up the floor. I'm glad. It's been a long time drawing those, So yeah. And then I have yeah, and as I'll just mention again, you can go on ais.pub/startup25. And then I have these couple of videos. If you go on slash, maybe there's a little Easter egg, but those are maybe two good videos to watch after the hackathon or something like that. Good. Go ahead, Ajahn. Sorry. Yeah, I think maybe I'll answer a few of the questions that come up, and then we can jump into logistics, and I can stop the sharing of my slides there. Chris Canal asks if the accelerator takes equity. The accelerator does indeed take equity, but it also has a standard deal for investing. So it is really doing the YC model. So you'll get all the advantages of early money and a space to work from in San Francisco, to accelerate your journey with these startups. And Julia asks if anyone from usual AI safety labs have made a transfer into the startups. Yes, we already know a bunch, and even more that are sort of transitioning one way or another. I think one of the biggest examples might be Dan Hendricks. He spends a bit of time on, and he still does a lot of work in the nonprofit AI safety lab space. But he founded the Center for AI Safety, which is a very AI safety lab esque place, and now spends a bit of time also on Gray Swan, which is a security startup working on sort of creating very secure models through some novel improvements, very close to the model framing. I also personally know a bunch of people who are considering in one way or another making the transition, and I think it's a very lively space. It's pretty exciting to see. And Liam asks if we can join the accelerator out of Europe. The accelerator is in San Francisco, so you'll have to fly out, have a visa for it, for that 12-week program. But you're very welcome to stay in Europe afterwards and then build the company there. So that is completely fine. And Chris Canal also asks if the space is in Constellation. We have deliberately decided not to put it in Berkeley because it is not actually in Berkeley that most of the AI development happens. It is really in San Francisco. So for anyone not familiar, you have San Francisco here, you have Berkeley here. There's a bridge. It takes an hour to get between them. And here you have a lot of the AI safety labs, a lot of the AI safety work happening. But it is a little bit insular. So there's really a lot of I think there's a bunch of stuff that's missed from not being over here in San Francisco. So the accelerator will be in San Francisco downtown, close to Anthropic's, OpenAI's offices, and so on and so forth. And of course, like sorry. Yeah, so we of course can, like, we have friends at Constellation and so on. So these things can be set up. Yeah, that is not the Juniper. It is, yeah, this is VC space. This is not startup space, so you don't need good search engine optimization. Nice. Sorry, Achana. Go ahead. True. Yeah. Yeah, is it in the Aris cluster or is it? No, it is. Constellation is an office space in Berkeley. Sorry, that's a great point. All right. Yeah. If there aren't any other questions, thank you so much for listening in, and really excited to see what everyone will build. And I'll hand the mic over to Achana for the rest of the logistics and what's going to happen during the hackathon. Of course. Hey, Achana, sorry for interrupting. You are sharing the Discord screen. Yes, it works now. Yes, thank you so much, Chana. Gonna be exciting. Yeah. See you there.
Not really, no. I just worked on my refining my idea a bit, but I'm not sure. Well, I was thinking about explainable AI in finance, but I don't know if it's too. Maybe it's not. It's too adjacent to the field. It's not directly related to AI safety. I mean, there's the explainability part, but since it's a bit focused on finance, I don't know if it will work. But okay, thank you. But I mean, it's okay if I do it on my own. It's not. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, of course.